appears to be making a video. So draft physics presentation, comment video. Still way too busy to do much physics, but I have been listening to some stuff. So anyway, respond to the comments. So, Mr. Natural, look good, sound good, just got to get used to the new background. Well, it's going to keep changing, actually. So I got to find one I like. Thumbs up and such. And so, Ted Bundy, troll. Good for you. You're truly supporting the science revolution to the fullest of your capacities right now. Whatever that is supposed to mean. Garbage. No doubt. Morbid atheist. Been waiting for this one fucking finally. I don't know what that means, so I'll just ignore it. So Anthony F. Fucker. Anthony the fucker. So again, I never said this. Nuh-uh. No, you don't. So he keeps harping on an issue I don't understand any hypocrisy. Where have I said conflicting statements? Show me the two statements that are in conflict with each other. So I will play the clip, which is perfectly reasonable.
I said was, this is where you're going to see a star. Okay, for you to see it there, that means that this light that was going here, that would have somebody who was sitting in a little rocket ship over here and looked, you wouldn't see this star because the light that would have gone to him is now going here. And it doesn't matter about any kind of, there's no way you can make that change. This star will not be visible from this location.
Right, and some other star will be. So the whole point is that lensing means that you see things where they aren't. So you see different things in different places. If it's true, if it was real, if it actually happened, then yes, there would be stuff that you wouldn't see that you should be seeing. That's part of it. If you're seeing things that you shouldn't be seeing because you're behind something, it means you also won't see things that you would have been seeing because now the light's going someplace else. So that's not a remarkable statement. Hardly challenging the foundations of physics with that statement. So here he says, you directly said at 6:12 he wouldn't see this star because the light would have gone to him is now going here, and it doesn't matter about any kind of, there is no way you can make that change. This star will not be visible from this location, and it's just a fact. There's no way to make it visible. Right. There's nothing wrong with that statement. This is a direct quote, bitch. So again, quoting what? Where's the conflict? And it's damn well clear that you said there's no way to see this star. Right. Lensing means things will disappear. That's one of the consequences of it. When they're in certain positions, you won't see them. So they'll move, and they'll be here, and all of a sudden they won't be there anymore. And then you'll see them over here, and then they'll move this way, That's what you'll see. And now here you are saying that the amount of photons hitting you would be conserved. Yes. It means that you're going to see other things that you wouldn't have seen. Yes. So the same number of stars will exist in the universe. It's just you'll see them in different locations. I'm talking to the mic again. You'll see them in different locations. So I've never said that the universe gets darker because of lensing, or for that matter, it gets brighter because of lensing. And that's my whole point. All it does is distort what you see. And clearly with a black hole, yes, it's going to make the universe darker because inevitably some number of photons are going to be consumed by the black hole. All right, and now here you are saying, okay, here you are saying the amount of photons hitting you would be conserved. even though in context what you said implies the exact opposite. No, it doesn't. I clearly stated the observer over here won't see. If you're seeing the star, then the observer who would have seen it isn't seeing it anymore. The other person in another location. And vice versa. I never implied that there wasn't an opposite and equal consequence. So again, just people are just so pathetic. There's no contradiction. How much further are you going to be in denial that you made contradictions left and right? So there are none. Show me how it's a contradiction. Show me where I said one observer sees a darker universe than the other observer. Show me where I said anything like that. You pathetic liar. God damn it. I mean, what is so complicated about this? I mean, I'm just making the simple point. Obviously, if the starlight is being bent and the location of a star is in a certain position where you could have seen it if it wasn't bent, right? It's in direct line of sight with you, but gravity is now bending the light. Clearly, the star that does exist there will not be visible. And just as clearly, a star at some other location, the light will be bent right to you because it won't go where it was going. Oh, fuck. I've been over this 4 times and he's still making this idiotic argument. It's a contradiction. You have to spell it out. You have to show how the two statements are in contradiction because I don't see any contradictions except the ones you're making up. And you use the word imply. I didn't imply any such thing. All right. DNG Speed Gary with your new abode and such. Okay, well, whatever. Bob the Fly. Okay, the donut hole object is big, so we can at least assume that it is actually round. Well, again, everything, you don't have to get very big before round becomes an obligation because of gravity. As soon as you get a certain size, the gravity is going to be strong enough to crush, okay, any kind of chemical irregularities. So it's going to wipe them out because the weight of gravity is just going to knock the anything sticking up isn't going to be able to stick up very far. Okay, actually round, since all large objects seem to be made round over time. Yes, and they don't have to be all that large if they're liquid. So clearly, depending on how hot they are, how solid they are, they can get round really fast, like a water drop. The Earth has a gravity shadow of 32 feet second squared. Whatever. I wonder how strong the donut hole object's gravity shadow is. Well, I think that's what they just took a picture of, assuming. But I don't know what the shadow is made out of. What's the source of the light? Why does the donut... The tricky part isn't the round part, the hole. The tricky part is the line out here where the brightness stops. How does that happen? Okay, Ted Bundy. So this is going to be deleted. I don't accept serial killer falsettos. Anyway, 16 thumbs up, 9 thumbs down for a total of 25. Hey, those are Pythagorean squares. How interesting. Wow, so fascinating. I thought a physicist such as you would appreciate that. Well, clearly I couldn't give a shit about all this little gimmick crap. I'm actually trying to model the real universe. And I don't really give a fuck about any kind of, oh, look, the numbers are in sequence or some other kind of crap. That's for little faggots like you. You are a real physicist, aren't you? Says Ted to who? Yourself? So he responds to himself. And then Ted Bundy says, I'm a real college graduate, and that is more education than most people who name themselves after murderers probably have. Well, that's interesting. And then, so I guess Bob the Fly must have said something that's not here anymore. Well, actually, I teach college, so take your condescending off-topic remark and shove it. Yeah, I don't think you teach college, so I think that's a frickin' lie. So goodbye, Ted. Alright, almost as dumb as Ted is Piro. Looks like isn't like. I don't know. I didn't say that in the last video. That's an old video. And this seems like a comment on the newest video. For example, 2 slit patterns are different than 1 slit patterns. Gee, I said that in a fucking video, didn't I? And I've only said it in about, 64 videos on this channel. So that's not new information. The question is, how does wave theory explain it? Water waves don't create an envelope pattern. So where does the envelope pattern come from? It's clearly not a wave phenomenon in the sense that water waves don't do it. So you have 2 slits with water waves. They don't create 2 patterns, one inside of another pattern. They just create the little bars, no breaks in the bars, no bullshit, just bars, bar, 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 all equally spaced. No dead spaces. The Schrodinger equation doesn't account for it, the pattern. It's not in the Schrodinger equation, the wave equation. So what's your explanation for why it's there? If light is a wave, why is it doing this extra thing? What's it there for? What's it a consequence of? That's what I asked you, fuckhead. I didn't ask you to tell me what I already know. I asked you to explain why. Well, why don't you first explain why none of the big physicists, none of the lecturers, Walter Lewin, the guy at Yale, the guy at Stanford, Leo, fuck is his name now? Whatever. None of them, when they talk about the double slit pattern, none of them talk about the 2 patterns. Now, why don't they do that? It's clearly a function. It's clearly happening. Why they avoid the subject? Oh, that's right, because their theory doesn't explain it. Doesn't predict it. That's what I asked you. I didn't ask you to tell me what I already know. I asked you to answer a question. All right. I'll answer the others. I doubt you will. You'll evade them just like you evaded this one. You didn't answer this question. Why is it there? Why is the double slit pattern enveloped, in what appears to be the single slit pattern? Why? Waves don't do that. Why is it doing that? And then you can also explain to me, if Huygens creates 2 waves in the single slit, why doesn't Huygens create 4 waves in the double slit? Why don't you answer that one as a bonus? Einstein predicted, fuck you, the possibility of the laser in a paper on quantum theory of radiation. Anybody could have predicted the laser. That's not miraculous at all. Oh, we could focus light, or we could create a coherent beam. I mean, Newton was already doing that with lenses. Galileo's telescope has culminating lenses in it. All right? I mean, it has, one lens to focus the light and then another lens to shoot it into the eyeball as straight as possible. So they're already playing with the idea of laser. This is so fucking idiotic. And again, let's remember, Einstein didn't think much of your quantum mechanics, your spooky action bullshit. On quantum theory of radiation. Right, so again, I asked you to show me how a formula predicted something, and you tell me Einstein predicted lasers, which is hardly remarkable. I mean, just the idea of bouncing a light beam between mirrors. I'm sure Newton thought of that. I'm sure he thought about the idea of it. That, wow, you should be able to keep it bouncing back and forth, and it would get more and more intense. And all the improvements over the last 30 years were done by following the predictions of QM. What a pile of crap. So again, just a bold statement, just saying something There's no evidence that QM had anything to do with being able to figure out that, well, if you reflect the photons back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, you're collecting them like a capacitor, you're creating more and more energy stored, and that if you can possibly release that energy, you'll have magnified the effect of the light. About, let's see, 30 years have done the following by the predictions of QM. So again, I say, show me a formula that predicted something, and he says this crap. And again, just this general statement. I keep complaining. He keeps saying about these predictions. He doesn't show any of it. And again, here he's picking a subject where anybody could have predicted this. Anybody with a tiny bit of knowledge of photons could have predicted lasers, about what would make the laser better. 2, doesn't matter how the tunneling microscope. 2, doesn't matter how the tunneling microscope really works. It was predicted by quantum physicists. I mean, again, so now the physicist is all, they predict something, that means quantum mechanics predicted it. So it doesn't matter. We don't have any evidence that they used any quantum mechanics to figure out the idea of it, right? And we know the idea of it is way simpler. I mean, it's Rutherford physics, okay? The idea of the tunneling microscope, all it is, I mean, you could talk about it in generic terms. All it is almost a phonograph record. I mean, it's that simple. A tiny little point, okay, and they run it across the surface 1,000,000 times, and over that period, doing that over and over again, they get a little tiny signal, or they do compile those signals over a period of time, and they get some resolution as to the atomic surface. And again, it doesn't do much good. It's like the tunneling microscope almost sees too much detail, and a regular microscope sees too little. And they don't have anything in between. The tunneling microscope will never give us images that could possibly matter. They show us details that are totally irrelevant. Not very useful. That's just a fact. All right, the tunneling microscope really works. It was predicted. So again, he puts it in quotes. It's just nonsense. The idea of it is completely an electrical experiment. It really has nothing to do with tunneling. It has to do with electrons and charge. And that's all they're really measuring is the movement of an electron. Okay, from the atom expels it and the needle collects it. And it's not any more complicated than that. And this is all just horse shit. That you need any quantum mechanics to make one. Bullshit. It was predicted by quantum physicists who also made it. So again, I say quantum mechanics didn't predict it. I say your formulas didn't predict it. I say your past knowledge didn't predict it. It's clearly just a logical progression of the fact that we are able to refine smaller and smaller tools. And we had if Rutherford could have made a tiny atomic surface and charge it, then he could have done the experiment. He could have invented it without quantum mechanics. So these are just horse shit. There's just no evidence. So again, it's just this propaganda. So all you get is propaganda. And so if it was true that a serial killer predicts something, then we have to believe that the serial killer predicted it because he's a serial killer. So if a quantum physicist says, I think there's aliens, it means that it was quantum mechanics that predicted aliens. I mean, this is so bogus as a decent formal argument. It's a silly reputation. Sorry. And he hasn't made any video, so he's not gonna publicly, explain or answer my questions, because his answers are going to be lame. They're going to suck, because he doesn't have answers, because his physics doesn't have answers, because they've made horrible mistakes and have a silly notion of reality. Yeah. Alright, so let's see if there's any spam in short video. Yay. Probably. Alright, so let's see. Alright. It's fake, don't you know? So this is the thing on the donut hole. Those lying scientists programmed, well, I mean, frankly, you know, when they make these bold claims for which they have very, very thin and weak evidence, it comes down to a lie. I mean, hyperboloid and such, you know, it's hyperbole. They're going beyond what their evidence should allow them to go, and in a sense, that's a kind of a dishonesty. Those lying scientists programmed the camera. There was no camera to warp everything it takes pics of into a donut. And again, where's your evidence that that's not exactly what their algorithm does? If you pointed at the Earth would look blue, like a blue torus. It wouldn't have a color. The color was completely artificial. They put the color there because they're using radio telescopes which see in microwaves. So they're making them look red-shifted for that reason. At least that's what I was told by the man with all the answers. Well, at least I'm not a pathetic liar like you. Alright. So let's state the obvious. Another troll account. The pattern is gradual. No, it isn't. Look, you can see the obvious difference between the electron pattern and the photon pattern. So just look at the two. Look up the two patterns, and you'll see the obvious difference. All right, the picture that show a bar pattern are caused by the exposure setting of the camera. It has nothing to do with the camera. I've done the thing in my own porch. You're a deluded idiot. The reason why it's bars is because it's really just an image of the surface of the slit. That's all you're transmitting is images of the slit, of the surface. The frequency is outside the range of the camera can pick up. But this is just, again, people have witnessed it with their own eyes. And again, why doesn't the camera distort the electron image then? Also, you expect there to be a perfectly linear graduation between light and dark spots. I expect when you say your math is accurate that it actually be accurate. Clearly, it's not accurate. But when you plot that on an XY graph, it would look more like a saw blade than a sine wave. Why would that be? Where's that in the math? Where's the saw blade in the math? Also, the wave equation is not just a sine angle. Yeah, it is. I'm just saying the wave equation doesn't have that much to it, so I don't know how it can't. It has to be dictated by a sine wave. That's what sine theta means, idiot. All right, you claim it's not to be. You claim to not be disputing math. Again, I'm not disputing math. I'm saying the math doesn't fit your experiment, idiot. The math doesn't predict the two patterns, and the math doesn't predict the difference between electron pattern and photon pattern. Just a sine angle dipstick. So I don't know what that means. Let's see it again. Also, you expect to... I read that. Like a saw blade. Also, the wave equation is not a sine angle dipstick. Yes, it is. You claim to not be disputing math, and then in the same sentence you contradict the very, very basic things like the wave equation. Yes, there's no wave in the wave equation. It's an angle equation. Again, show me where it's not an angle equation. Show me how the angle isn't in the equation. It's already in the equation. There is no There's no geometry that goes with the wave equation, okay? It's not in the equation itself. You have to provide that to create the angle. And it's an angle, not a wave. All right. Very basic things like the wave equation is implicitly in Maxwell's equations. And again, who cares? There's no wave in the equation. It's an angle equation. Again, you keep arguing that there's some other thing happening here. No, photons go at specific angles. 3 degrees, 6 degrees, 9 degrees, 12 degrees. I've only said this 48 times now. That's the fact. That's what the equation shows. That's what the equation dictates. And I'm saying that angles can be explained by other things besides wave interference. All right. Also, a half-silvered mirror is not a diffraction gradient since the holes are all close together. So here we go again. Insane rubbish. Single slits create pattern. And it doesn't matter how close they are to each other. They always create pattern. And you're just denying the reality. There's diffraction gradients that have 5,000 lines per square inch in them, 10,000 lines per square inch, to very, very close together, and they create pattern. So you're a fucking idiot. You're just in total denial of absolute facts. All right. If you'd bother to learn about Huygens principle, no, I've learned what it is, and it's nonsense. It's absolute rubbish. An infinite number of little wavelets are created. Right there, you're out of the game. An infinite number in a confined space, that's retarded. You think that's good physics? That's like spontaneous. I heard Michio Kaku in his book. He writes the word spontaneous all over the place. Nothing happens spontaneous, idiot. And what it says, you'd know. All right, Huygens principle, and what it says, you'd know that the destructive interference from one hole is created when there are missing point sources. What this absolute rubbish. So again, I'll just say to you, then why doesn't Huygens happen with the double slit? Why don't the two single slits in the double slit experiment Huygens, and therefore create 4 waves instead of 2? But those point sources are there when there's many holes close together. So then what's causing the pattern? Then why do diffraction gradients shoot light, diverge it at specific locations? Why? Why do they spread the light if they're not working, if they're not causing diffraction? Also, not all beam splitters are half-silvered mirrors. When did I say otherwise? I never said they were, did I? I just said the most famous experiments are being done by half-silvered mirrors. That's a fact. Michelson-Morley, half-silvered mirror. Okay, nobody really uses half-silvered mirrors in interferometry anymore. Says you. Where do you have evidence of that? Why don't you show me proof of that? They use glass and the principle of refraction. Yeah, so I'm just saying, why don't you show me the proof that that's what they all use? And those diffracting, and those diffracted, if those diffracted, the light then teleprompters would be impossible, since the letters would get diffracted into 88 copies of themselves or whatever idiot. How so again? What do teleprompters have to do with wave interference and small apertures? I mean, please explain. Yeah, I don't know. What's your explanation? Why? Where's the diffraction gradient in the teleprompter? Just saying. I mean, really, what's the explanation? So you're saying if I organize, no, I've seen it even done with lasers, okay, where they have a diffraction gradient where the lines are mixed, and they shoot a little star through it with a laser, and the stars end up in all kinds of locations all over the place. What's causing that? I mean, it's really happening, right? So the light's shooting in directions. The laser was going this way, and the light's going all over the frickin' place. Clearly, what's causing that? Oh, yeah, the tiny, tiny, tiny holes between the tiny, tiny, tiny lines. You're the idiot. Clearly. In denial, idiot. Your evidence is pathetically weak. It was always bad evidence. The Young experiment is completely unremarkable. I'll say it again over and over again. But I mean, it added nothing. Newton already knew all that Young knew. Young didn't know anything new. He didn't reveal anything new. He didn't discover anything new. He didn't explain anything new. All right, and in 1930, all you little whack jobs decided to turn photons into wavitons, wavicles, or whatever the fuck they turned them into, and decided that they're going to make them mysterious and funky and weird, and give them all the properties. So everything that happens in the universe is now happening because photons don't have identity, and they don't have position, and they don't have any momentum, and they don't have any of this crap that's very basic to physics, because you've decided that the material universe doesn't affect anything, that there are no electrons anywhere for photons to interact with, that all of electrodynamics, you are the ones who flushed electrodynamics down the toilet and decided photons do things. They don't need to interact with electrons. No. They can be wacky all by themselves. You made a gigantic mistake, and you people just keep, as religious fanatics do, you just keep defending the faith. Defend the faith. Defend the faith. Because you're all glued to living in a wacky verse. A universe that has some potential to have a redeeming feature somewhere. So it's not deterministic, because you just can't deal with that. Idiots. So that's it. Okay. Garbage. So let's see if Piro will make a video answering my questions. The one I'm really interested in is how he explains whether single photons have a wave function and then recombine into a photon, or whether two different photons, like in the radar experiment. The radar experiment, which jamming uses exactly the same math, exactly the same Schrodinger equation, will get you the same exact answer if you just think of it in terms of overlapping radio signals, therefore they can't be received. So jamming has exactly the same geometry as wave interference, but doesn't require any photons to interfere with each other. So that would be the big question I want Piro to answer. Take a position, Piro. Do different photons, can they interfere with each other magically under whatever unknown circumstances, right? We don't get to know how they do that, right? Because we can't shoot two lasers into each other and cause interference. So somehow there has to be some sort of magic trick to it. What's the magic? What's the trick? Or do individual photons, single photons, go into an interferometer, and a single photon splits in two and goes both paths? Is that your theory? While it's diverging in one path and not diverging in the other. Something else you're never going to be able to explain. Alright. So, I've done my job. Which is to honestly report the condition of their pathetic evidence for their extraordinary, hyperbolic claims that they know the truth, when what they know is nonsense. Okay. So, enough of the video. I believe. Very tired. Long days here. Sucks living with people. a person. Just because, yeah, just. I mean, I don't know how people survive. They waste so much time on crap that couldn't possibly matter. You know, like the bottom of your feet get dirty. So what? It's the bottom of my feet. I mean, stuff people worry about. Just, I don't get it. But anyway, until the next time, you know, it's just all the time. I mean, they just waste so much time on all the crap that doesn't matter. I mean, it's not like we're living in plague times or something. I'm not for living with bugs or something. I'm not going that far, but it's just this obsessive thing about a, you know, single bug or a single piece of dust. It's just like, no, there's no crisis. But anyway. I'll quit complaining. Could have been. Look, the whole thing is I'm still here. I'm okay. It's not too bad. So, it's, I just don't think I'll ever get used to being outside, though. It's just too much people, too much noise. So, I think I'm going to become more and more of an insider person. Well, we'll see. Maybe that too will change. Maybe. So what else? Yeah, that's it. So till next time. And such.